Scene 6 of Act 1, The Hamlet, Tuesday, September 8th, 11:20 a.m. Please understand, Mr. Lane interpolated. District Attorney Bruno at this point. That Inspector Thum is giving you... I already read that. Scene 7, Private Room in a Car Barn, Friday, September 4th, 8:05 p.m. Inspector Thum's account indicated that events had moved rapidly after the other occupants of the car had been released. Thum returned to the private room in which the Longstreet party sat miserably waiting. Louis Imperial, the perfect gentleman, rose at once and bowed, precisely his heels clicking together in that absurdly military fashion. "My dear Inspector," he said in the nicest manner, "please forgive my presumption, but I'm sure we are all in need of nourishment, no matter how little inclined we may be to eat. Don't you think that some provision should be made, at least for the ladies?" Thum looked about. Mrs. DeWitt sat, still rigidly on her bench, with half-closed eyes. Jean DeWitt leaned on the broad shoulder of Lord. Both were pale. DeWitt and Ahern were engaged in a passionless, low-voiced discussion. Pollux sat well forward, hands clasped between his knees, whispering steadily to Cherry Brown, whose set face and clenched teeth destroyed every vestige of her prettiness. Michael Collins had buried his face in his hands. "All right, Mr. Imperiale. Dick, run downstairs and rustle some grub up for the folks." A detective accepted a bill from the Imperial and left the room. The Swiss returned to his bench with the self-satisfied look of a man who has done his work well. "Well, Doc, what's the verdict?" Dr. Schilling was standing before the screen, putting on his coat, his tattered cloth hat perched grotesquely atop his bald pate. He crooked his finger. Inspector Thum crossed the room, and the two men went behind the screen to stand over the dead man. One of the young ambulance doctors was sitting on the bench beside the body, writing scrupulously on a report blank. The other was paring his fingernails and whistling softly. "Well, sir," began Dr. Schilling jovially, "this is a nice job, a very nice job. Death from respiratory paralysis, but that's a detail." His left hand flew up, and with his pudgy right, he began to count off on his fingers. "Number 1, the poison." He bobbed his head in the direction of the bench. The weapon had been unwrapped, and lay innocently enough at Longstreet's stiff feet. The needle ends around the ball of cork are 53 in number. Their tips and their eyes, projecting from the cork, were dipped in nicotine. Nicotine, I think, a concentrated form. "I thought I smelled stale tobacco," muttered Thum. "Yeah, you would. The fresh, pure product is a colorless and odorlessly oily liquid, but in water or on standing, it soon becomes dark brown, and you can smell the characteristic tobacco odor. Undoubtedly, this verdammt poison was the direct cause of death. Nevertheless, we shall conduct an autopsy to make sure that there was nothing else. The poison was introduced into the body by a direct method. The needles pricked the palm of the fingers in 21 places. The poison made immediate entry into the, I assume, bloodstream. We'll find out when we turn the page. Yep, bloodstream. From what I understand, death did not ensure for a few minutes. That means that this man was a heavy tobacco user. Unusual tobacco tolerance. Number 2, the weapon itself. Down went another fat finger, a prize for your police museum, Inspector. So insignificant, so simple, so unique, so deadly, the product of an ingenious mind. Number 3, probable source of the poison. The third finger fell. Thumb, my friend, I don't envy you. Unless this poison was secured through legal channels, it will be untraceable. Pure nicotine is hard to buy, and if I were a poisoner, I wouldn't get it from a chemist. It would be possible, of course, to distill it from an enormous quantity of tobacco, which normally has a nicotine content of 4%. But how are you going to trace a nicotine cooker? The easiest way is to buy a can of... Dr. Schilling mentioned a well-known liquid insecticide, and you have nicotine without much trouble. It has 35% content to begin with, and by evaporation, you would get just such a resinous, sticky mess as the needles are smeared with. I'll send feelers out among the regular channels anyway. Said Thumb glumly. How long would it take for this poison to act, Doc? Dr. Schilling pursed his lips. It shouldn't take more than a few seconds ordinarily, but if the nicotine were not wholly concentrate, and Longstreet were the very heavy smoker, it would have taken 3 minutes or so as it did. I guess it was the nicotine, all right. Anything else? Well, I am not over fastidious myself, Inspector, but this man was in a frightful physical condition, replied Dr. Schilling. Faugh! But I'll tell you more about his insides after my autopsy. I'll have it tomorrow. Nothing else here, Inspector. The boys will take this gentleman away. The wagon's outside. Inspector Thum wrapped the needle cork in its sheath of cigarette packet and newspaper and returned to the Longstreet party. He gave Sergeant Duffy the weapon and stood aside as the two interns carried the blanket-covered body out on a stretcher, followed by a beaming Dr. Schilling. Again, that deathly silence as the body was borne past. The detective had found no difficulty, it seemed, in securing food. They were unwrapping sandwiches and munching with slow jaws and sipping from containers of coffee. Thumb signed to DeWitt as Longstreet's partner. You're probably best equipped to tell me about his habits, Mr. DeWitt. The conductor has often seen Longstreet on this car. How do you account for this? Longstreet, in matters of routine, was extremely methodical, particularly, said DeWitt acidly, about the time he left the office, frankly. He wasn't much interested in long hours or hard work. He left most of the plugging to me. Our main offices are downtown on Wall Street, but we've always made a habit of returning to our main branch at Times Square after Wall Street closing, and leave there for West Englewood. Longstreet generally quit the branch office the same time every day, a little before 6. He always made the same train on the Jersey side. I suppose it was habit that made him regulate the time of our party's departure from the hotel today, so that we could make the usual train. That accounts for our being on the same car. I understand that you took this car yourself rather frequently. Yes, when I didn't stay late for the office, I often went back to West Englewood with Longstreet. Inspector Thum sighed. How is it neither of you seem to have used an automobile in business hours? DeWitt smiled grimly. It's a nuisance in New York traffic. We have our cars wait for us at the Englewood station. Just how methodical was Longstreet in other matters? Very methodical, Inspector. In little things, although in his personal life he was inclined to be reckless and undependable. But he always read the same newspaper, always consulted the final stock reports in the paper on the way to the ferry. As I've told you, wore the same type of clothing on business days, smoked only one brand of cigars and cigarettes. He was a terribly heavy smoker, yes. In most details, he could be depended upon to follow fixed habit even, and DeWitt's gaze was frosty to coming into the office at noon. Thum eyed DeWitt casually. He applied a match to another cigarette and asked, did he have to wear eyeglasses for reading? Yes. For close work especially, he was a vain man, thought glasses marred his personal appearance, and therefore dispensed with them for street wear and social functions wherever possible, even though the lack of glasses inconvenienced him. He was forced to wear them for reading, though, not only indoors, but for outdoors. Thum put his hand on DeWitt's small shoulder in a friendly way. Let's be frank about this thing, Mr. DeWitt. You heard Miss Brown accuse you of killing Longstreet. Of course that's nonsense, but she said over and over that you hated him, did you? DeWitt moved, and somehow Thume's large hand contrived to fall from the broker's shoulder. And DeWitt said coldly, "I am innocent of my partner's murder, if that is what you mean by frankness." Thume stared long and steadily into DeWitt's clear eyes. Then he shrugged and turned to the other members of the party. "Everybody here will be pleased to meet me at the Times Square office of DeWitt and Long Street tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock for further questioning. There will be no exceptions, ladies and gentlemen." They rose wearily and shuffled toward the door. "One moment, please," continued the inspector. "Naturally, I'm sorry, but you'll have to submit to a personal search. Duffy, get one of the matrons for the ladies here," they gasped, and DeWitt, in an angry tone, expostulated. Thume smiled. "Certainly no one here has anything to conceal." The procedure in the general room a few minutes before was now repeated under Thume's eye. The men were uneasy and the women flushed and irate. Mrs. DeWitt broke her silence of hours to snap a swift word in Spanish. At the broad chest of the inspector he raised his eyebrows and waved his arms at the matrons with finality. Names, addresses, came Jonas's droning voice at the door as they began to file out after the search. Duffy looked depressed. Not a thing achieved, no sign of needles, corks, or anything else fishy. Thume planted his feet solidly in the center of the room. Frowning and chewing his lips, "Search the room," he said harshly. The room was searched. When Inspector Thume left the car barn in the midst of his men, he was still frowning.